AEW Dynamite is kicking some ass and taking some names. So, what exactly happened in Indianapolis on Wednesday night? Well, I'm going to tell you. This is All Elite Review. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to tonight's edition of All Elite Review. Today we're going to be reviewing the 8th episode of Wednesday Night Dynamite, which took place on November the 20th, 2019, this past Wednesday, in Indianapolis, Indiana. Another pretty damn good show, if I may say so myself, bookended by two awesome matches. Like, the opening match was just holy shit, and then of course the main event was off the chains crazy. But before we get to all that, there's actually some news stories and other stuff I want to talk about real quick before we get into the review. So, starting out, this news kind of made the rounds a lot this week. Jim Cornette, of course, resident wrestling douchebag. He resigns from the National Wrestling Alliance after there were basically racist comments from shows from a long time ago that surfaced, and it all came about after he tried to make a really spicy joke on an episode of NWA Power on YouTube. And a lot of people basically caught wind of that, and there were not a lot of people happy about it. So, as a result of all the backlash, Cornette has resigned from NWA as their lead announcer. I think he's their lead announcer. He was one of the commentators. But is this really surprising, to be honest? I mean, Jim Cornette, probably one of the greatest wrestling minds ever, but he is just so toxic. And, the fact of the matter is, even if it was, a harmless joke, a lot of people really took it the wrong way, and it sounded kind of racist in a way as well. And let's be completely honest here, people. When you are a commentator or a lead announcer for a wrestling program, you are their voice. Your actions are representative of the organization you work for. This would have been, this probably would have been a different scenario if this was made on either on Twitter or his podcast that he has. But the fact of the matter is, he was on the job as, on his job as, announcer for NWA when he made this joke. And that's going to reflect poorly on NWA, especially considering the fact that, and here's the thing. This is just as much on the NWA as Cornette, because, apparently these episodes of NWA Power are taped weeks in advance, so they had plenty of time to edit it out, but they let it go live anyway. So they pulled it off of YouTube, off their YouTube channel, and then put it back up without the joke in the video. But the damage has already been done. So, yet another firestorm surrounding Jim Cornette, which, that's just par for the course at this point, considering how much of a fucking scumbag he is. But, it is what it is at this point. I wasn't really going to talk about it, but, considering the fact that, it's basically been a huge talking point in the wrestling world, pretty much all week, I pretty much had to talk about it. But, next up, we have the ratings for the quote-unquote Wednesday Night War. NXT finally got their first ratings win over AEW. According to the Nielsen ratings, they had a total of 900 and I think like 15,000 people, while AEW had around 890,000 people. So NXT Fett gets their first ratings win. Woohoo! Couple problems with this. First of all, even though overall they had the most viewers, they lost nearly all of the demographics except for the 50 and over. Secondly, their show comprised mostly of main roster talent. And thirdly, why is this even a thing? Thirdly, like I said, this whole Wednesday Night War nonsense, I mean, let's be honest here, people. Who the fuck really cares? Like, why does this matter so damn much? I mean, who the fuck cares who, wins the ratings war every week? It's all this other bullshit. Like, why does that matter so much? Why are people so concerned about the damn ratings? Why can't they just enjoy the fact that Wednesday nights is basically wrestling night? Because not only do you have a great product in AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite, but NXT has been killing it as of late as well. I mean, you have 2 premium wrestling shows on a Wednesday night. One, I mean, it's going to be kind of difficult to watch them both at the same time, considering the fact that they're both on at the same time. But, I mean, with, the capabilities you have with DVR and all that stuff, you can DVR one, watch the other one live, and then you can watch the other show that you DVR'd at your own leisure. You know what I mean? And you get 4 hours of high quality content. Because, let's be honest here, NXT and AEW have been kicking some major ass, since this whole Wednesday Night War began. Like, why do we need to consider it a war? Why do we need to split things down the middle, when it comes to, well, which is better, NXT or AEW? Who the fuck cares? Why does that matter so much? Why can't we just come together as a pro wrestling fan base and enjoy both products? Because you get the best of both worlds. You got all the unique stars in AEW, and you have all the NXT stars. And they're tearing it up. I mean, yeah, granted, NXT is always at Full Sail University, but that's beside the point. I mean, there's really no need for the so-called war between those who choose NXT and those who choose AEW. I mean, the real common sense here is watching both shows and enjoying the wrestling from both shows. I mean, because at the end of the day, who benefits the most from NXT and AEW putting on these high quality shows? Basically trying to one up each other. The fans, because they get to reap the benefits of watching some spectacular wrestling. So that's why I think that the whole Wednesday Night War thing, I mean, it's a bunch of nonsense. Speaking of a bunch of nonsense, the WWE is apparently going to be suing All Elite Wrestling because of a tweet made by Cody saying that, probably going to court soon, I need to find a suit. I am going to guess that it is because of AEW that's going to be using the Bash at the Beach moniker for a future episode of AEW Dynamite, which is taking place in Miami, and it's actually part of a 9-day round trip that includes another episode of Dynamite on Chris Jericho's cruise ship for Chris Jericho's Rockin' Wrestlin' Rager Part 2. So WWE is probably suing them because it's like, well, we own, Bash at the Beach. Technically, no, you don't, WWE, because you let the trademark expire. It was no longer under your name, and Cody Rhodes, according to the database, is actually filed to have Bash at the Beach trademarked. So yeah, I would say you're pretty much screwed on that one, WWE. But in addition to trying to get Bash at the Beach trademark, Cody also has a bunch of other names trademarked, such as Bunkhouse Stampede and Battle Bowl, a couple of old WCW concepts. Which, by the way, for my final video on this channel of 2019 on Christmas Day, Since there won't be an episode of Dynamite that day because, of course, they have Christmas off, I'm going to release a special episode of All Elite Review where I basically talk about a concept, about how to bring Battle Bowl to the masses here for AEW. Because I think in a recent interview, Cody said that he has the Battle Bowl name, but he's kind of unsure, how to bring it, to the AEW audience. There'll be more. Really, if you want to see more of that and watch me go into deeper detail with that, that'll be coming next month on Christmas Day. So, keep an eye out for that. But, and then finally, I have a little bit of a bone to pick with Simon Miller. He does this sort of pseudo review show called Ups and Downs, and he's been doing it for AEW as well. Now, typically, I agree with some of the criticisms that he has, but this week, his 2 downs that he gave to Dynamite this week were so much of a stretch that it's a surprise he didn't pull any fucking muscles. His first down was a head scratcher to be sure, because he gave the Private Party versus Proud and Powerful match a down. You would think he would have given it a down because of the ref botch in the middle of it, but that wasn't the case. He said that the reason why he gave it a down was because Private Party won. Like, what? Why would you give it a down because Private Party won? Well, Proud and Powerful was supposed to stay strong. Did you ever consider the fact that maybe the tag team division is one of the most competitive in all the world? I don't know. Not to mention the fact that that match was actually a tribute match, for Private Party and Proud and Powerful, because, recently they lost a friend of theirs in the wrestling business, Matthew Travis, who was a wrestler for House of Glory Wrestling, who was killed in a traffic accident. He was hit by a car while riding his bicycle. That was really supposed to be a feel-good moment for Private Party, who ended up winning the match, which we'll get to in a bit. And that was for them. It was a tribute match, and he gave it a down because Private Party won. That was stupid enough. But then his second down was even more stupid and ridiculous, because he gave a down for Kenny Omega's promo. And his reasoning just made me want to it made my brain hurt, because he was like, yeah, this was actually a really good segment, but down. Because we need to have more promos in the ring. Why the fuck does it matter if the promo is in the ring or not? A promo is a promo. Not to mention the fact that, did he even pay any fucking attention whatsoever when we got back-to-back promos before that? We had the Jericho segment, and then after all that was over, then you had the Librarian Peter Avalon. Even though it wasn't that long, he did cut a promo of his own on Luchasaurus, both of which were in the ring. What the fuck difference does it make? And the other thing that made me, it's just like, he said he loved the segment, but he still gave it a down because, it wasn't in the ring. Like, that is some of the stupidest fucking reasoning I have ever heard him have in one of these up and down reviews. It's like, are you fucking serious? I realize you're trying to make yourself seem as unbiased as humanly possible, but, dude, sometimes, you need to stop. If a show is good, then there's really no need to give it downs if the segments don't really need the downs. Because even he said that the Kenny Omega promo was good, but he gave it a down anyway because it wasn't in the ring. Like, how fucking stupid do you sound right now? Like, Simon, seriously, you realize how fucking stupid that sounds? It just makes you look like you're really stretching to find downs when there really isn't any to be found, and it honestly, it sends your credibility into the fucking shitter. Because you're going to have a lot of people going, what the fuck are you even talking about? I don't know. It just made no fucking sense to me. And, you know, sometimes, you know, he can be like that where it's like, yeah, he talks nonsensical bullshit, you know? It's like, how about just being honest and stop stretching out for downs when, you know, there wasn't anything fucking wrong with either of them to begin with. Stop with the fucking bullshit. I mean, he's had legitimate criticisms in the past, don't get me wrong, but this time around, I mean, he jumped the shark on that one, for sure. But with all that out of the way, get a drink here. Let's go ahead and get into this review. So, things kicked off with a singles match, and this one was really interesting. Because Matt Jackson was injured in the attack by Proud and Powerful last week, Nick Jackson would end up going into singles competition for the first time in 4 years. And his opponent is none other than Rey Fénix. And for someone who hadn't been in singles competition in over 4 years, it sure as hell didn't look like it. I mean, it looked like he'd been in a singles match only recently. Like yesterday. It's like, really? It's been that long since he's been in a singles match? And these two put on a fucking masterclass. Like, this was without a doubt the best opening match that they put on so far. Which resulted in a first for Dynamite as far as I'm concerned. Which I'll explain in a minute. So, highlights of this match. Nick, they were basically throwing shoulder blocks at each other. Nick got the upper hand. Fénix hits a nice drop kick. There was a great exchange between the two of them when they were doing all kinds of, like, you know, flippy kicks and shit where they were like dodging each other's moves because they knew each other so well. Both exchange knife edge chops. Fénix hits a couple of springboard headbutts and a nice tightrope arm drag. I mean, he does that tightrope, you know, thing, you know, like with his eyes closed. It's just like he's insane. Nick hits a nice tornado kick. Fénix dodges the spaceman dive from Nick and hits a nice rolling cutter on the outside. And then hits a swanton bomb for a 2 count. And then Fénix tries to go for the tightrope kick, but Nick dodges out of the way, hits a nice little 3-hit combo, a bulldog, and then a penalty kick for a 2 count. And then Nick kind of does a tightrope balance himself and hits a avalanche Frankensteiner for a 2 count. That was really good. Both exchange blows. Nick with a tornado kick, Fénix with a super kick. Nick with a roundhouse kick and then a super kick. Fénix nips up and hits a super kick of his own, and both men are down. So these guys are going 100 miles an hour right off the bat. And then Fénix does another little tightrope thing, this time on the middle rope, and he does a Frankensteiner to the outside. Nick does a nice 3-kick combo. Fénix hits the rolling color again, this time in the ring for a 2 count. Both of them exchange a lot of forearms and kicks. Nick with a nice stalling German suplex on the apron and then a spiked X Factor. You know how he does the springboard X Factor? He just fucking spiked Rey Fénix. And then hits a slingshot destroyer for a 2 count. Locks in the sharpshooter, but was unable to get the submission victory. Fénix hits a nice victory roll for a 2 count. Fénix then hits a super kick and then the springboard roundhouse where he jumps off the middle rope and does a jumping roundhouse kick. And then he hits his singles finisher where he starts out in a muscle buster but then transitions it into kind of like a Falcon Arrow. I think it's called the Fire Thunder Buster. I might not be entirely correct on that, but whatever the hell it's called, it looked really good, and he got the 3 count and the victory. So these are actually these guys' first singles matches here in AEW. Basically been tag team specialists all throughout, but Rey Fénix, I mean, he's a great tag team wrestler, or he's a great singles competitor too. I mean, until recently when he was beaten by Kenny Omega, which by the way, he was on the dark match, which I'll explain here in a second, Phoenix was the AAA or AAA All Mega Champion. And if you don't know what the Mega Champion is, basically it's the promotion's top championship. Basically, it's their world title for the most part. And who was he beaten by for that title? Kenny Omega. And Kenny Omega actually defended it on AEW Dark, which will be aired next Tuesday. And he defended the AAA Mega Championship against Jack Evans. And you might be asking yourself, well, why Jack Evans? Well, Jack Evans was also a part of AAA for quite a long time. And in fact, him and Angelico were the longest reigning AAA Tag Team Champions in history. So, there you go. So, there is some history there. But anywho, yeah. What a fucking opening match this was. And how good was it? I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Yes. AEW Dynamite gets their first 5-star rating from me. I mean, we've seen, all the 5-star ratings I've given have been on pay-per-view events, but there was no question this match was worthy of 5 fucking stars out of 5. It was that damn good. These two were going 100 miles an hour. I mean, and for all the friggin' crazy moves that they were doing, there was no botches. I mean, it was clean, it was fluid, like the acrobatics and, the timing, the athleticism, the stamina. Like, holy shit. I mean, these two were just going at it for basically 10 to 15 minutes, and it was a fucking masterclass in singles competition. I'm like, damn. And again, Nick Jackson, he hadn't competed in singles competition in 4 years, yet in this match, it looked like he'd been doing it forever. It's insane. And it just shows how insufferably good the Young Bucks are. After the match, he actually offered a handshake to Rey Fenix because, yeah, that was a good match. But of course, Fenix, he said, no. So it's like, okay, so that's how it's going to be. So I would expect this rivalry between the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers to flare back up. But yeah, that was one hell of an opening match. Which leads into the next match, and these two had quite the act to follow. Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, versus Hikaru Shida. So you have a couple of basically baby faces going at each other, and you're probably asking yourself, well, why is that? Well, if you had seen the rankings from last week, this was a number 1 contenders match, basically, because you had the number 1 ranked wrestler, Britt Baker, versus the number 2 ranked wrestler, Hikaru Shida. So, for all intents and purposes, this is a number 1 contenders match. So, this had a lot of importance to it. So, highlights of this match. Baker with a nice shoulder block, both trade arm drags. Baker tries to lock in the lockjaw early, but can't get to it. Hits a couple of nice lariats and a suplex for a 2 count. Baker with a ground abdominal stretch. Shida starts fighting back with forearm shots and then a running knee strike to the gut while Baker's hung up on the top turnbuckle. And at this point, the crowd were actually chanting for both Shida and Baker. So it's like, man, they actually got the crowd involved here. Shida hits a nice flying knee strike. I'm not exactly sure when this happened, but Baker actually ended up with a bloody nose. So I saw the referee pull out her black gloves, which I guess is standard practice now. If there's blood involved, then you need to put on the gloves and shit. But yeah, at some point Baker ended up with a bloody nose. So not exactly sure how that happened. Baker hits a nice sling blade and then a pump handle flatliner for a 2 count, which looked really good. Shida gets knocked out onto the apron. She actually goes for a knee strike, but misses when Baker moves out of the way, and she tumbles over onto the apron. Tries to go for a shoulder block, but Baker hits her with a rising knee and then a hanging DDT for a 2 count. Shida hits a nice rising knee strike. Both start trading forearm shots. Shida with a nice judo throw, which she transitions into a fireman carry backbreaker, which looked really good. Shida hits another running knee strike. Goes for the cover, but Baker transitions it into a lockjaw. Actually managed to get the Rings of Saturn portion on it, but Shida struggled with all of her might and managed to get to the rope. But not stopping there, Baker actually then picked her up and transitioned into a fisherman neck breaker for a 2 count. So that was pretty good. There was a bit of a hiccup here where Baker tried to go for the super kick, but kind of hesitated when her foot got caught. So Shida basically gives her a little bit of an eye poke and turns it into a small package for a 2 count. Then Shida hits a Falcon Arrow for a 2 count. And then Shida set her up and hit her Shining Wizard knee strike, basically the Basako knee, which is her regular finisher, for the 3 count and the victory. So getting the surprise win for a lot of people, considering how much AEW has been pushing Britt Baker. Your winner is Hikaru Shida. And of course, they've also been pushing Shida as well, but I think it's pretty obvious that they want to have that rematch between Shida and Riho for the Women's Championship. So that might be coming in the near future. But this was actually a pretty good match, for all things considered. I mean, yeah, there's a botch here and there, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, it was still a good match, and the crowd was even into it at one point. So I gave this match 3.5 stars out of 5. You know, Hikaru Shida she's one of the best workers, you know, in that division for sure. So to see her and Riho go at it once more, I mean, I think that'll be a good one. And then we have the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal. This was a little bit more unique than the Battle Royals we've seen in the past. 12 wrestlers would enter the Battle Royal. However, instead of an overall, you know, instead of what we normally see, where it's like a last man standing kind of deal. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. So the objective of this Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal is that all 12 wrestlers would go head to head in an over the top rope battle royal. But once they get down to the final 2, those would be considered the 2 winners of the battle royal, and then they would go head to head. They will go head to head next week in Chicago, where the winner will receive an AEW Diamond Ring. I guess it's a little bit of something that, you know, these wrestlers can go for, I guess, on occasion. I don't know if this is going to become a regular thing, or like every other month or something like that. They'll hold a Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal where the winner will receive a diamond ring. You know, a lot of people were speculating that this was the prize that Cody was referring to when he had an interview earlier this month, but I don't think it is, because that interview took place on November 8th, and he said that there would be a prize that would be unveiled next month being December. So I don't think this diamond ring is what he was referring to, although it will serve as a pretty good prop, especially for someone like, say, MJF, which we'll get to in a minute. The 12 participants in the match were Badass Billy Gunn, yes, that Billy Gunn, Chuck Taylor, Hangman Adam Page, Jimmy Havoc, the Bad Boy Joey Janela, Jungle Boy, Superbad Kip Sabian, Marco Stunt, MJF, Orange Cassidy, Pentagon Jr., and Sonny Kiss. Now, the moment I saw MJF and Hangman Adam Page in this match, it's like, yeah, they're probably going to go that route again. Because remember, those 2 were the final 2 of the Casino Battle Royal back at Double or Nothing. So I figured, yeah, they're probably going to reignite that rivalry a little bit. But, so, before this match even began, someone who, it looked like Rey Fenix at first, he came down to the ring, you know, and was talking with, looked like he was talking with Pentagon. But then he pulled off the mask, and it turned out to be the fallen angel, Christopher Daniels, and he distracts Pentagon, and Pentagon gets eliminated right off the bat by Chuck Taylor after Daniels distracts him. So it's obvious that rivalry is going to continue. And then Sonny Kiss starts doing like this twerk in the middle of the ring. It's like, oh shit. Yeah, I am not a fan of the Sonny Kiss gimmick. I am not a fan of that effeminate bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm just not into that. But MJF put an end to that right away and threw Sunny Kiss over the top rope, which got a lot of boos from the crowd. Personally, I was like, thank God for that. But MJF got a lot of boos because, well, he's got nuclear heat on him right now. So, everybody starts ganging up on Billy Gunn, but he powers them all off. Jimmy Havoc and Stunt get eliminated by Billy Gunn, and then Havoc goes back into the ring and starts attacking everyone with a stapler until the referees finally got him out of the ring. We go to a commercial break. During this commercial break, Shawn Spears comes out and eliminates Joey Janela from the match by hitting him with a chair. Janela was actually on the top rope at the time, so Spears came out, hit him with the chair, and Janela gets knocked off to the outside. So obviously that rivalry also continues. They basically cost each other matches at this point, so obviously that one's going to come to a head before too long. Billy Gunn starts punching everybody with those nice hooks that he has. Orange Cassidy does his thing where he kind of gives those half-assed kicks, but then he gets eliminated by MJF, which got massive boos from the crowd because Cassidy, of course, is super over with the crowd, and then MJF kind of does the and then Gunn turns him around. He's like, that's twice, and MJF basically slaps his hand away and starts talking trash to him, and then Gunn was like, suck it, and hits him with the Famouser, which got a huge pop from the crowd. But then Wardlow comes out. First of all, Gunn tries to eliminate MJF, but MJF holds on. And then Wardlow comes out, of course, because he's MJF's lackey, and basically causes a distraction. And Page hits a buckshot lariat on Gunn and eliminates him, which actually got some boos from the crowd. Chuck Taylor hits a nice rising knee strike, I think, on Adam Page. Kip Sabian with a nice enziguri kick. Jungle Boy does a nice little Frankensteiner to eliminate Kip Sabian. I think Sabian eliminated Chuck Taylor. I think Chuck Taylor was actually going to do something, but he was grabbed by Penelope Ford, and then Sabian did an enziguri and or something of that nature, and eliminated Chuck Taylor. Jungle Boy eliminated Sabian with a nice Frankensteiner, so it looked like it was going to be Jungle Boy against Adam Page, but MJF had actually rolled back into the ring and then rolled under the ring, under the bottom rope, and then when it was just Jungle Boy and Adam Page, he yanks Jungle Boy off the apron because when he did the Frankensteiner, he actually went over the top rope. So MJF eliminates Jungle Boy, and the winners of your Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal are MJF and Hangman Adam Page. And afterwards, they nearly went at each other. So they basically had, referees were running in, basically had to pull them apart because the heat between them is still pretty much real. Well, in storyline anyway. Kind of dating back all the way to Double or Nothing. So they're basically continuing that a little bit. And they will face each other for the Precious Diamond Ring next week in Chicago. I think it's pretty obvious that MJF is going to win it because, something like like what resembles a championship ring, that's the perfect prop for, a guy like MJF, the cocky bastard, to basically flaunt it and, rub it in everybody's face like, a heel, and it'd be a way to get even more heat on him than there already is. And it's like, yeah, the ultimate payoff would be to see, someone push his shit in, especially if it's Cody. So I think that's what they're ultimately going to be building for. I don't know if it's going to be at the first pay-per-view of next year, which is probably going to be slated in February, or maybe Double or Nothing. Or hell, maybe they may even stretch it all the way to All Out next year. Who knows? The thing about that is you don't necessarily want to pull the trigger too early, but at the same time you don't want it to go too long to where it'll start running out of steam. So it's kind of like a fine balance. But considering how much heat is on MJF right now, and considering how beloved Cody is right now with the fans, I would say this is a rivalry that could last through probably most of next year, I would say. But, yeah, I would expect MJF to, it's probably going to have like a fuck finish, where he has Wardlow interfere or some shit like that, which, I'm not a fan of the interference bullshit, but I can see it coming from a mile away. Because it's the perfect prop for MJF to use to get even more heat on him. So this battle royal was okay. I mean, battle royals are usually a pretty sloppy affair, and this one was no exception. But it was all right. I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. Then came Jericho's announcement. He basically got fined for his temper tantrum last week, and he tried to say the word sorry, and he's like, he kind of goes into seizures, and he can't get the word out, so he has to go to Jake Hager, who came out with him, and he's like, Jericho says he's sorry. So they basically had him say sorry because he couldn't do it. So basically his announcement was he was going to have a party next week in Chicago. Basically he's going to finally get his thank you. It's the Thanksgiving Eve party basically for him. And then SCU comes out, and it's like some people are like, why is SCU coming out? Well, it should be pretty obvious. And if you remember the previous week, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara challenged SCU for the tag team championship, and Scorpio Sky pinned the champion, gave him his first loss in AEW. And you could tell that it was a pretty big deal because the announcers, the commentators, they were hyping it up. They were talking it up, pretty much all through the show. Like, yeah, Scorpio Sky laid a loss on Jericho. And this also kind of throws back, because I'm actually gonna hold off on that for a minute, because it kind of ties into what I'm going to talk about next. So Scorpio Sky gets on the mic and he says, well, I'm a huge Jericho fan, but after I pinned you, my Twitter DMs were blowing up. An old crush of mine called me up, and we're going to be going out this weekend. And the crowd was just going nuts, and they were actually chanting SCU. They were really into it. Scorpio Sky is becoming a huge commodity in AEW. I mean, he's getting super over. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he, gets a singles run at some point. I mean, he's currently, one half of the tag team champions. But, I mean, considering how over he's getting with the crowd, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he got a singles run. And then Jericho's like, yeah, I've seen your crush. She's gained a lot of weight in the last couple of years. And then Scorpio Sky responded with, well, I like big butts and I can't not lie. And then I think it was Tony Schiavone who was like, and the brothers can't deny, kind of finishing it off. I was like, okay. And then Jericho basically just, started going into a hissy fit, and he's like, oh, I'm going to challenge you to a match next week. And then the other members of FCU were like, well, we need like a month, to train and stuff. And Jericho was like, no, it's going to be next week. And then Frankie Kazarian was kind of like, yeah, don't, talk to him about, the title shot, because you know how Jericho is about, the belt day, or something like that. He was speaking like in Pig Latin and shit like that. So it was a bit of like a reverse psychology kind of thing, and Jericho's like, well, you know what? I'm going to challenge you to a championship match, next week for the AEW World title. So basically, and a lot of people were like, well, why is Scorpio Sky getting a title shot? When he's not even, a singles competitor. Two reasons. There are two ways that you can circumvent, the records. So even though Pac, is considered the number one contender right now, at least as far as I think last week's rating is concerned, there are two ways that it can be circumvented. The first one is if you pin the champion in a non-title match. Although in this case it was even more so because Jericho and Sammy Guevara were actually challenging for the AEW World Tag Team Championships in the main event last week. I think it was last week. And Scorpio Sky got the pin over Jericho in a big main event World Tag Team Championship match. I mean, that has a lot of clout to it. Not to mention the fact that Jericho is the AEW champion, and he was undefeated up to that point. Overall. Now, he's still undefeated in singles competition, but that was his first official loss in AEW. So that carries a lot of weight as well. The second way it can be circumvented is if the champion issues a challenge. AEW actually kind of went the route and combined both of them because, Sky got the pin over Jericho last week, and this week Jericho challenges Scorpio Sky. And the funny thing about that is, if you remember all the way back to All Out, there was a a post-match interview, but Jericho was actually interviewing himself, and he was basically talking trash to everybody in the back. And one of those people was Scorpio Sky, and he was like, yeah, Scorpio Sky, you're never going to get a shot at this championship. Oh, really? And then Jericho ends up, challenging him and putting his belt on the line next week in Chicago. The attention to detail is just crazy. I mean, All Out was all the way back in August, and, they're remembering something from that far back. WWE wishes they had that kind of continuity, or maybe they could have that kind of continuity, they just don't give a shit. But, he said, yeah, the match is now official, and he grabs Sky's hand. He's like, we handshake on it, it's now official. And Sky's kind of selling like, oh, okay. And then he pulls Jericho, and he's like, I've been waiting 15 years for an opportunity like this. And next week, I'm going to make Le Champion Le Bitch. I'm just like, oh, shit. And then the Inner Circle basically starts attacking SCU. Proud and Powerful and Sammy Guevara come out and basically beat down SCU. Jericho hits a brutal looking Judas effect on Scorpio Sky. It looked absolutely vicious. Then Michael Nakazawa and Brandon Cutler try to run down to intervene but get knocked off the apron. The Jurassic Express come out. Marco Stunt gets obliterated by Jericho. Jungle Boy tries fighting back, but also gets knocked out by Jericho. But then Luchasaurus gets in the ring, and everybody's like, oh, let's get the fuck out of here. And then the only one left in the ring from the Inner Circle was Jake Hager, and it looked like the two of them were actually going to brawl, because Hager basically took off his watch and threw it to the crowd. So it's like, oh my god, we're going to get a showdown between these two. And of course, the crowd's going crazy for Luchasaurus because he's over as fuck. But Hager backs down, and there were boos and everything, and it basically made Hager look like a pussy. If it was me in the ring, I would have been like, oh, that's the way it's going to be. Well, you remind me of one of these. A big, wet pussy. But yeah, very interesting segment, and we're going to have an AEW World Championship match next week. Now, obviously, Scorpio Sky is not winning. Let's be completely honest here. But like I said with Darby Allin, it's not necessarily the end result that matters here. It's the storytelling. Like, how legitimate can Chris Jericho make Scorpio Sky look? Because, he made Darby Allin into a very popular figure. I mean, like we're going to see here in the main event when we talk about it, Darby Allin was super over, as was Jon Moxley. I mean, the crowd was split down the middle between those two. And Scorpio Sky is starting to get over with the crowd big time, so now you're going to have this championship match where he's going to get a chance to showcase how good he is. And it's obvious Sky's not winning the title, but who fucking cares? The only thing that matters right now is getting Scorpio Sky over. And it's all about the storytelling. How good can Scorpio Sky look, and how good can Jericho make him look? So that's the thing with that. The next match was a squash match. I mean, Luchasaurus was, scheduled to come out anyways and face off with Peter Avalon, who basically was talking a bunch of trash, like, you're nothing but a fossil, and all this other shit. And it's pretty obvious that the librarians are nothing but squash fodder at this point. Luchasaurus, when the match starts, he hits his feint kick, and then he hits his Stone Age bomb for the 3 count and the win. Basically, starts out with a tombstone, but then turns it into like an inverted power bomb, and gets the 3 count and the win in like 20 seconds. So it was pretty much a squash match. I gave it 1.5 stars out of 5. Then the next match was, of course, the tribute match for Matthew Travis, Proud and Powerful against Private Party. This is the one that had the botch by the referee, unfortunately, but we'll get to that here in a minute. So, highlights of the match. Cassidy with a crucifix for a 2 count. Santana with a shoulder block. Cassidy with a back roll arm drag, which looked really good, and a drop kick. They go to a commercial break. Santana hits an avalanche Russian leg sweep on Mark Quinn, who had tagged in at this point. Ortiz with a DDT, and then Santana with a stalling bridging German suplex for a 2 count. Santana hits a nice pendulum backbreaker and turns it into like a stretch. And then Santana and Ortiz do this like exchange suplex where they would tag in and out. They had Mark Quinn in a suplex, and they were basically, exchanging it back and forth. And then eventually Ortiz turned it into a Falcon Arrow for a 2 count. Ortiz puts on the Boston Crab, and Santana also applies a Camel Clutch. Proud and Powerful hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker and then a guillotine leg drop by Ortiz. Ortiz with a Northern Lights suplex for a 2 count puts Quinn in a bear hug. Cassidy hits a Frankensteiner, gets the hot tag, hits a Frankensteiner, then gets a super kick, a Gamangiri, and an Asai moonsault to the outside. He hits the code red on Ortiz, and this is where the botch happened. The hand was coming down for 3, and I guess they tried to make it seem like Santana grabbed the referee's foot and was like, hey, Ortiz is not the legal man. And that's what the commentary team was basically saying as well. But that definitely looked like a botch, I'm sorry to say, which definitely took away from the match a little bit. But Quinn hits a nice somersault plancha to the outside. Proud and Powerful hits their sit-out powerbomb, slingshot super kick for a 2 count. And then they hit a running kick and cutter combo for a 2 count. But then Cassidy hits a super kick. Santana tried to use his, what they call the blackjack, which is the sock filled with baseballs. Nick Jackson runs out and actually grabs the sock away from Santana. And I think that's where the super kick happened with Cassidy. And then Private Party hits their gin and juice finisher out of nowhere for the 3 count and the victory. I gave this match 3 stars out of 5. After the match, the Inner Circle started attacking Nick Jackson as well as Private Party. But then Dustin Rhodes comes out and starts laying the smackdown on Proud and Powerful and Sammy Guevara with his cast that he had on his left arm. Basically was plastering him with it. And the baby faces stand tall in the middle of the ring. And then we get to our main event of the evening. Jon Moxley against Darby Allin. And yeah, I had heard about some of the matches they had on the indies, and boy, this match was a barn burner, and it was one hell of a main event. They also had some very unique entrances, like Darby Allin. He had this video package where he was at a concert, and he was put into a body bag that had MOX plastered on it for Mox. And then during his entrance, he had some guys carry him out in the body bag and set it down on the stage, and he basically unzipped himself and came out of the bag to a huge roar from the crowd, skated down the rampway to the ring. And then Moxley, of course, comes out, and comes through the crowd. That's his usual entrance. But things got started before the bell even began. As Moxley was heading towards the ring, Darby Allin hit his tope suicida, sends Moxley over the barricade and then dives over the barricade himself. They fight through the crowd. Both eventually go back towards the ring. Moxley hits a nice overhead belly-to-belly suplex on the floor. Both wrestlers get back in the ring. Allin hits a nice shotgun drop kick. Tries to go for a crossbody, but Moxley shrugs it off like it was nothing. He hits his own shotgun drop kick and then hits some nice hip tosses. Hits a nice catatonic backbreaker for a 2 count. Moxley with a back elbow for a 2 count, and then a Texas Cloverleaf, which he then transitions into a Deathlock STF. So nice little transition there. Allin then does another crossbody and basically slides off of Moxley and falls to the outside. And that looked like a pretty nasty fall there. Moxley hits an X-Plex and then a running knee strike. At some point, Moxley looked like he dislocated his middle finger. I don't know if it was from because Allin actually hit a stomp on him, which looked like he stomped on his hand. He might have actually legitimately stomped on his hand and accidentally dislocated one of Moxley's fingers, because after the match he was trying to pull it out, kind of like what happened with Kip Sabian on Dark a couple weeks ago, where he tried to relocate the finger. But yeah, it looked like Moxley had a dislocated middle finger. But here was a scary moment of the match. Allen does a somersault plancha through the ropes, but his feet actually hits the top rope. And if it wasn't for the fact that Moxley was there to catch him, he probably would have landed on his head and probably broken his neck, legitimately, because you could see that his feet hit the top rope, and it basically stopped his somersault then in its tracks, and he was basically, he damn near pile drove himself, is what it amounted to. But Moxley basically was there to catch him, and if he wasn't there to catch him, that could have resulted in serious injuries for Allen. Of course, what happened at the end of this match didn't look like Moxley cared one bit, but Allen brings the body bag into the ring, but Moxley hits a nice vicious lariat, which turns Allen inside out. Allen gets zipped up into the body bag and gets stomped a couple times. But then Allen hits his shoulder ride stunner. Bounds all off the ropes to try to go for a move, but Moxley hits the black hole slam. Allen counters with a schoolboy for a 2 count, and then a nice Yoshi tonic for a 2 count. He goes for the coffin drop, but Moxley, with a beautiful looking counter, and transitioned it into a rear naked choke submission. But then Allen rolls backwards and counters it into a pinfall attempt, only gets a 2 count. Moxley goes into the corner and gets up on the middle rope. Allen follows him up and tries to, twist his fingers, kind of like similar to, what he did with Cody. But Moxley then bites on Allen's face, because before Allen had been biting on Moxley's fingers. And then, oh my God, this may have been the move of the year. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, how Allen is still alive after this move, I'll never know. But you could tell from the crowd, and some of the guys, who do regular reviews and shit on YouTube, even they were like, holy shit. Moxley hits an avalanche Death Rider, an avalanche an avalanche impaler double arm DDT. Just absolutely fucking spiked him. Like, holy shit. That move looked devastating as fuck. I guarantee you would never see that on WWE programming. Because they've watered down their shit so much, and they play it safe, basically to a fault. You would never see this kind of move on any of their programming. Moxley looked like he just fucking killed him. All you have to do is go watch it on YouTube. They have the ending to that match on their YouTube channel, and my God, that was one. That is how. But at the same time, that is how you fucking finish a main event with a move like that. Like, holy shit! And it was a definitive fucking finish as Moxley gets the 3 count and the win off of the Avalanche Death Rider. Like, holy shit! What a fucking main event, dude. I think, really, the only botch was that somersault plancha where Allen got caught. But other than that, what a way to end the show. Bookended by 2 great matches. Nick Jackson and Ray Phoenix, of course, that was an awesome match, and I gave it 5 stars. This one, I'm going to give 4.5 stars out of 5. Like, this show was the cat's ass, to say the least. My final rating for this show, 8.5 out of 10. Yet another fucking good show from AEW Dynamite. And that's pretty much going to do it. Before we end it off here, real quickly, because I haven't done it yet, and I forgot to do it at the beginning of this review. The results for AEW Dark from last night, or Tuesday night, when they were in shit. I can't remember the damn city. Fuck. Where were they at before Indianapolis? I can't fucking remember. Son of a bitch. Nashville. There we go. I couldn't fucking remember. So there were 3 matches on AEW Dark. They were all tag team matches. The Best Friends defeated Private Party. Dr. Britt Baker and Riho defeated Big Swole and Chris Statlander, who was a newcomer. And then in a main event, the Young Bucks defeated the Strong Hearts with the Meltzer Driver. And of course, all of that was before the attack by Proud and Powerful on the Young Bucks. So those are your results for AEW Dark Episode 7 from Nashville. Apparently next week there is going to be 4 matches, all of them singles matches, and 2 women's matches. Although one of them was a squash. But yeah. But that is going to do it. A little bit longer episode than usual, but there was a lot to talk about. But that's going to do it tonight for All Elite Review. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Bye. Well, that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, favorite, like, and subscribe to my channels here on YouTube.com and over on BitChute.com. If you would like to sponsor my channel, go to my channel page at subscribestar.com. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Have a good one.